So, I'm going to be starting to discuss the content of the World of the Hero examination. So, A-level classical civilization. So, the World of the Hero examination is 2 hours 20 minutes and it contains an Odyssey context, 15 minutes, about one side, which is 10 marks. Now, a context question is a passage with questions, factual questions first. And then there's an Odyssey mini essay of 30 minutes, which is 2 sides, and that is 20 marks. Then you've got year 2 material, which is Virgil, a context, once again a passage of 15 minutes, one side, which is 10 marks. And then another mini essay, 30 minutes, 20 marks, roughly 2 sides of A4. And then you've got a synoptic question, which combines the Odyssey and the Virgil passages and finds common links between the passages, either literary or thematic, and that's 10 minutes, and again it's one side and 10 marks. Then there's a choice of either an Odyssey or an Aeneid scholar's essay, which is 30 marks, 3 sides. So that's rather longer, that's about 45 minutes. So let's have a little look at the 10-mark context question. Typical types of question is, how does Homer make this passage an exciting piece of narrative? So you're looking at anything that makes the language exciting, dramatic. You might pick out any similes. You might look at direct speech. Say a character's in a storm and they might wish they died at sea, for example, in the Odyssey and the Aeneid. And you might look at dynamic verbs. You might look at extreme language, repetition, exciting things that happen with the gods, or any gifts of the gods. So you need as much evidence from the passage to support your answer. So you need actually quotes from the passage. So evaluate how successfully Homer makes this piece a powerful piece of writing. Explain how Homer creates sympathy for Odysseus in this passage. So exciting, dramatic, or sympathy are quite a common question. So it's about 15 lines of text you've got to be able to pick out the quotes. It will give you the book numbers, it will give you the lines. You should aim to make around about 10 to 12 points in the 15 minutes that you're writing it. Use quotes from the passage. No introduction is required. You can just plough straight in on this question. The 20-mark mini essay is about 30 minutes long and at least 2 sides. It could focus on a series of themes from the Odyssey. It could limit discussion to the first half of the Odyssey or the second half of the Odyssey or certain books. You can use all the passage evidence on the paper in your essay. So all the passages to do with the Odyssey you can use in this question. This one actually needs an introduction and a conclusion. It doesn't need any scholars' comments like the 30-mark essay, so no. 2 types of essay are common. Identify the most important theme out of a series of themes, and that could be 4 to 6 themes you have generated, and then you pick out the most important, and you should reiterate that most important theme in your conclusion. So what's the most important threat or most serious threat to Odysseus on his journey back to Ithaca? So you generate a series of themes and you pick out the most important threat. Or it might fall into a 2-sided essay, argue this side or that side, which is the most, which you are going to decide on. So let's look at some examples. Themes could be experiences of Xenia, leadership, the gods helping and hindering, female characters such as Penelope and Calypso. If that's the case, check whether the mortals or gods are mentioned in the question. Fantasy or reality? Which is better? The journey, the fantasy journey, or the battle on the hall? The position of slaves, loyal slaves and disloyal slaves, or justice and revenge. A lot of these 20-mark essays could actually be expanded to 30-mark essays. So Odysseus is never made to feel welcome on his travels. To what extent do you agree that Odysseus is shown poor hospitality? Xenia in books 5 to 12. So that's an example of a 20-mark essay. Explain who or what is the most important to Odysseus on his travels in books 5 to 12. In your answer, you should discuss at least 3 points. So with that question, you should aim for between 4 or 6 themes, 3 at a minimum, but between 4 or 6. If you are only doing 3, you should do 3 themes in and take a lot of time over them, a lot of care over them. However, if you pick more themes, so 4 to 6, you could kind of use a scattergun approach, where you make a point, evidence, make a point, evidence. The passage of the Aeneid kind of reflects the passage of the Odyssey, so another time-melt context question. About 15 lines with book numbers and lines, 10 marks, one side, make 10 to 12 points, it's 10 marks, better to make at least 11 points. Use quotes from the passage again, like the Odyssey, and again, no introduction is required. How does Virgil make this passage an exciting piece of narrative? Again, similar questions to the Odyssey. Look at the dynamic verbs, look at the language, look at the extreme, any extreme language, vast troughs, gulfs, things like that. Look at any pathos or sympathy. So go through your checklist and look at the exciting language. A possible question might be, explain how Virgil creates sympathy for King Priam of Troy, or another character in this passage. The 20-mark mini-essay of the Aeneid should be at least 2 sides. You've got 30 minutes for it. It could focus on a series of themes from the Aeneid. It could limit discussion to the first half, the second half of the Aeneid, or a certain number of books. You can use all the passage evidence in the paper in your essay. Again, it needs an introduction and a conclusion. No scholars' comments are necessary. Leave that for the 30-mark essay. 2 types of essay are common. Again, identify the most important theme out of a series of themes which you yourself have generated, or is it X or Y? So, you know, it's a 2-sided essay, that is. So, let's have a look. Aeneas behaves in an unheroic way throughout the second half of the Aeneid. So, you could divide it into heroic, unheroic, put what you agree, and reiterate that in your conclusion. So that's an example of a 2-sided essay. Discuss how committed Aeneas was in his mission of reaching Italy. You may use this passage as a starting point in your answer, so look out for that. Any Virgil evidence on the paper you can use in the mini-essays. So you can use the context questions in the mini-essays. So that is a series of themes, 4 to 6 themes, and you are looking at, you know, sort of why Aeneas should be sort of committed to his journey. So let's look at the themes. Leadership, hero, gods helping and hindering, father and son relationships. The Aeneid is Augustan propaganda. We've had several passages which are very subtly propaganda, and we've got others that are overt, such as Jupiter's prophecy in Book 1. Women in the Aeneid. So we're going to look at powerful women such as Dido and Camilla, or less powerful women. So we're such as the Trojan women in Book 2, who are pretty desperate at the palace, clinging to their altar in the courtyard. The role of fate. So what quite often we've got a set journey for Aeneas laid down. He's going to reach his destiny. He's going to found Lavinium. So what role does that have? Does that make the book more interesting or not? And how does that tie in with the link to Augustus and Rome? And optimistic, pessimistic outlook of the Aeneid. This is perhaps a better two-sided essay than the one I discussed on the right. So optimistic, it's Aeneas, sort of founding his city of Lavinium, and that will eventually resort down the centuries to Rome. That could be seen as a positive. However, when we have actually lived through history and seen the dangers of empires and stuff like that, is that pessimistic, along with all the warfare that goes on in the Aeneid. I'm going to be doing a separate PowerPoint for this. So optimistic views versus the destiny of Rome versus pessimistic, all the sort of warfare and loss and deaths that go with it. So the 10-mark synoptic question is quite tricky. A plus point is you've read both passages, you've read the Odyssey, you've read the Aeneid, so you are familiar with them. But the passage should link the two. In which passages are the society's beliefs and values put across effectively? So you have got maybe the Odyssey with Xenia, you might get the Aeneid with Xenia as well, hospitality, or another value, and you've got to look at which is the most effective passage to put it across. Which passage is more engaging for the audience, so you can look with language like this, and you can look for sympathy and pathos. And you should refer to the passage from the Aeneid and the passages from the work of Homer, which you have read. You have to be careful, there's Iliad passages on there. You've read the Odyssey, so you should stick to the Odyssey passage. So let's have a little look at the synoptic values. So I'm afraid the screen border has kind of cut that off a bit, but these are synoptic values for the 10-mark synoptic question. So you've got heroic values, behaviour of a hero, including the ideals of the Time. Looks like time, but it's Time, honour, and Kletos, glory. You've got Nostos, particularly strong in the Odyssey, the importance of getting home to restore order and also for family reasons. You've got the gods, the role of the immortals, the relationship between mortals and immortals, and devotion to the gods through sacrifice and other duties. Particularly important here is Pius Aeneas, remember dutiful Aeneas. You've got family relationships between men and women, parents and children are important. Xenia, we've looked at Xenia extensively in the Odyssey. Hospitality and guest friendship. Do you know the hospitality code? Do you know what people have to follow? Can you spot when someone doesn't follow the rules? Justice and revenge. Does Odysseus go too far in his revenge against the suitors? So that's quite a good 20-mark question, and also it's a good kind of synoptic theme as well. So think of these questions as they could be, they could occur anywhere on the paper. They could be a 20-mark, a 30-mark, they could be a synoptic theme. Women's position in the society, and slaves. So what is valued in a slave? Good or bad examples of a slave. Pietas, duty, furor. That's when Aeneas goes quite mad, and it often contrasts to Pietas. He goes mad with anger and fury when his companion Pallas is killed. Heroic values. Aeneas behaving more like an individual hero, and we've had that with Odysseus as well, haven't we? And Aeneas having to leave Troy, and this is a big deal because you wouldn't think that's heroic leaving, but he's leaving to found a new Troy, so that's quite important. Important themes are warfare, death and funeral arrangements, fate, the importance of fate and destiny, often shown through omens, shooting stars, etc. Aeneas has a divinely inspired mission, and that's a big theme. Other themes are gods, the role of the gods, the relationship between mortals and gods. Family, the importance of family and relationships between men and women, parents and children. So the paterfamilias, who is the head of the household, is very important in the Aeneid and in Roman life. So the father-son relationships are also important, both the characters in the Aeneid, and also they reference the relationship between Julius Caesar and Augustus, who was his adopted son. So looking at some themes there. Now, when we come to the essays, when we come to the big essays, the 40 to 45-minute essays, these are the 30 markers. In the Odyssey, Penelope is the only female character depicted as being without a fault or flaw. To what else do you think, to what extent do you think this is true of the way women are portrayed in the Odyssey? So that 30 mark question, you might focus on the women in the Odyssey, like Eurycleia, like Penelope, and you might look at their, sort of, are they perfect? What flaws do they have? What faults they have? To what extent do you consider praising Augustus to be the only purpose of the Aeneid? Justify your response. So can you see that you've got an Odyssey essay and you've also got an Aeneid essay there? So that will probably be how the exam paper set out. You can do 2 questions out of 3. The third one would be an Iliad essay. You can't do because we haven't studied it. Nobody studies Iliad and Odyssey together. So you have to choose 130 marker. You need both an introduction and a conclusion. You need to identify the most important theme out of a series of themes which you've generated, or it could be a 2-sided essay. Or you can actually concentrate on the characters themselves, like in the Penelope essay on the left-hand side. You must mention 3 scholars, mentioned by name and integrated into the argument. So not only do you do the quote, you actually explore the quote and how that gives evidence to your argument. We'll be doing more things on scholars' comments very soon. And you can use all the picture and passage evidence on the paper in your essay. So it should roughly take 40 to 45 minutes and it should be at least 3 sides. So I've put some more scholars' comments, 30 mark essays on. So Athena's role in the Odyssey is essential to the success of the epic. So you generate other themes that are essential to the epic as well. And you might say why Athena's role might not be successful, but it's easier to argue a positive than a negative, so you might come up with some other things that were important. The portrayal of warfare and its effects were completely negative. So when we get to that point in the Aeneid, we'll look at warfare and we'll look at any positives as well, opportunity to show bravery and glory. So look at the themes on the 20 mark mini essays as potential themes for 30 mark essays. So expand 20 mark essays using scholars' comments. They can be used for both 20 and 30. The 31 are a little bit more expansive over many more books, over the work as the Odyssey and the Aeneid as a whole. Look out for Augustus and propaganda and the portrayal of warfare. So they are important essays that have been used in the past in the previous spec. So I hope that's helped, and we'll be discussing and planning through these essays in class further.